Hello and welcome to the 32 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. The first Monday after opening weekend, Turbo Pod Central. I am joined by the great Kendall J. Rogers, joined by the great Bradley Maxwell Smart. I want to say thank you to our good friends at Academy Sports and Outdoors. They carry all the best gear from the top brands at prices that you'll love. Shopping is more convenient than ever at academy.com. You can also get on the app, the Academy app. Enjoy free shipping on orders of $25 or more with sign-in. You've got easy in-store and curbside pickup. Shop anytime, anywhere. Find the widest selection of colors, styles, and sizes from grills to fitness equipment to workout clothes. Everything you need to have fun out there is right here at academy.com. Really excited to go through the season with the good folks at Academy Sports and Outdoors. So cool to hear so many of our college baseball brethren that Academy was just like part of their youth, their life. So I've got Kendall and Bradley here, and obviously Kendall was at Globe Life. I was in Arizona all weekend, and Bradley was at the command center just scouring games and scores. All right, so boys, we're gonna this is gonna be a turbo pod, just like what everybody's whistle for the first weekend. Before I ask you about what you saw, Kendall, I'm going to tee us up. There was one major change in the rankings. You know, we try not to be too reactionary, but sometimes you just have to react. And, you know, Arizona had a bad weekend. I don't think there's any other way to say it. They got swept at Globe Life. And I'll have you comment on the second. So Arizona came out of the rankings, and Cincinnati went in. Cincinnati had a very impressive road series win at Duke, who is a very highly ranked team. So, Kendall, maybe you take it from the Arizona perspective. You know, I think the key to their season last year was the rotation. Yeah. They had to replace all three pieces, and it sounds like they're probably still kind of searching for answers in the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, they are to some degree. I mean, I think if you look at this team overall, I mean, obviously, you know, Colin McKinney is kind of interesting. You look at his numbers from over the weekend. You know, one run in 4 1/3 inning, you're thinking like that's actually pretty good, right? But, you know, I just think when you look at him from a stuff standpoint, obviously a powerful arm. I'm just very curious with the secondary stuff moving forward, how that translates, you know, especially in like a rugged Big 12. Obviously, Smith Bailey to me was a bright spot. But other than that, I just really felt like Arizona left a lot to be desired from a pitching standpoint. I think offensively, I'm still a believer in this team. I mean, I think you look at up and down this lineup. I mean, you know, Tommy Splain didn't get a single hit over the weekend. Garen Caulfield, I mean, he's had so many big hits in his Arizona career. You know, hit 154 over the weekend. And even Brendan Summerhill, to some degree, you know, was pretty quiet. He had 1 home run, 4 RBIs. But, I mean, you know, other than that, you know, 1 home run, he was very quiet. So, I think Fitty might have put this the best in the group chat the other night that, you know, Chip Hell is a really good coach. That staff does a really nice job. And I'm pretty confident they'll kind of figure the offensive thing out. It's just pitching wise, I didn't see a lot of juice, and we'll see if that changed over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think to your point, like Chip Hale's done such a great job there, and you know the pitching part of his coaching staff, Kevin Vance, and then John DeRoyan, who's the guy behind the scenes. You know, they're the ones that put that rotation together last year that was one of the most dependable in the country. But
yeah,
I thought this year's version of that was going to be, okay, Tony Pluta, Owen Kramkowski, and Casey Hintz at the back, like 3 lockdown guys to get those final 12 outs. Well, the rotation was so uncertain that next thing you know, Kramkowski, they're running up into the rotation. Mm-hmm. He had a terrible start. I think he gave up 7 runs and maybe got 1 out. And so, you know, and to your point about McKinney, Kendall, like I just wonder how deep a power pitcher like that can get into games. Like I picture sprayage and inefficiency, and like you're getting 5 innings in his best starts.
Yeah, I mean, what concerns me about Colin McKinney is not necessarily like today. There's a lot of effort there, at least from what I saw over the weekend, and I just wonder, like, what is he going to look like in April? I guess that's looking way too far ahead. But, you know, you got to think about those things when you're trying to analyze a team and what you feel like they're going to do the rest of the season. So, you know, number one, that is a concern. Number two, I mean, Kevin Vance does a really nice job. You mentioned DeRoyan. I mean, they've proven it before. So to say that they can't do it would be selfish. But, you know, overall, they were the team I thought coming out of the weekend other than Oklahoma State that I thought had some pitching question marks.
Yep, very fair. Bradley, I'm going to turn to you on Duke. I mean, part of me, I'm going to have you give us the Duke side of the story. Part of me is like, this is not about Duke, it's about Cincinnati, who almost snuck into a region, not snuck, like they almost played their way into a regional last year. And, if the Cincinnati administration's listening, you better have a long contract ready for Jordan Bishop, because if you don't, somebody else will. Like, this dude can flat out coach. Like, it is unreal what he did at Central Michigan, and he shows up at Cincinnati and like it's like add water and secure wins. Like, it is crazy how quickly Cincinnati got real. But what'd you see from the Duke perspective, Bradley?
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're really right to give a lot of credit to Cincinnati. I feel like they just did such a good job at making Duke uncomfortable. Like, every inning, it felt like was a grind. Like, whether it's bunting for hits, I think they had 6 base hit bunts, drop down sack bunts, squeeze bunts. They went, I think, like 10 of 11 on stolen bases, something like that. Drew a lot of walks, got hit a bunch of times. And I feel like obviously it kind of unraveled in that third game for Duke in particular, but it kind of was building to that. Duke had got some good outings out of the bullpen in the second game to, get that win, set up that Wallace Clark walk-off. But it really felt like Cincinnati was just they made Duke really work for every out, and I don't think Duke's pitching was quite up to par opening weekend.
Yep. Yeah, and
what's interesting about that, Runes? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But what's really interesting about the way Bradley kind of explained Cincinnati's offense is that it takes me back to a conversation I had with Kevin O'Sullivan a couple of years ago when they had played CMU, and he was just like, it's such a unique look. He's like, they'll do some different things in the dugout. They'll have such a different offensive philosophy and offensive approach than any other team we play in the SEC. And he said a lot of times, like, it's really hard on a single weekend to get used to a team that does things so differently. What it kind of reminds me of, though, when Bradley's explaining them, is those old school Matt Deggs offenses at Louisiana. Remember they had Trahan and all those guys, and Chase Compton. I still remember in the Super Regional that one year Chase Compton drops down a bunt with bases loaded, and the next at bat he hits like a home run off the top of the light standard. And I'm not saying Cincinnati's loaded with those guys, but they've got the Carrington Crosses of the world and whatnot. They can do a lot of different things. So when you have an offense that, it's like having Michael Vick out there at quarterback. I mean, he can pass the ball, he can run the ball, he's going to wiggle out of everything, and it's like really difficult to slow down. And that's kind of what it sounds like Cincy is right now.
Yeah, and to Bradley's point, you put a lot of pressure on the worst defenders on the field, which is the pitcher and the first baseman. Yep. You give the pitcher another thing to be thinking about. And, to Sully's point, Kendall, like, nobody else is doing this, right? Everybody else is trying to hit home runs. So as a coach, how much time can you spend on defending bunt for a hit? You don't have time for it because you're going to maybe see it once a year. And so, advantage for Cincinnati.
One thing I am kind of curious about, just from Bradley watching that series from afar, is, I mean, are there any legitimate concerns that you have about Duke after the weekend, or was it more so just like they ran into a team they're just a really bad fit for them?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things too. You don't want to overreact to opening weekend, and especially not a team coach, but Chris Pollard. And I think Duke will right the ship. I mean, they threw so many different pitchers, and we didn't even see Andrew Healy, who's starting in the midweek. So I think give him time. I think the offense didn't do a ton, but came up with some clutch hits. I think they hit like 7 home runs. So they showed some things. I think it's just one of those things where it's really bad fit off the bat, and I don't think the pitching staff was ready for it.
Yep. Yeah, and Duke is physical and big and like that, that makes sense to me. Well, anyway, it's what a fun, good for Cincinnati. Hey, so boys, let's start with a kind of overview of your weekend question, then we'll get into your weekends. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I will give the answer to each one first. So let's start with a positive development. So something that you saw this weekend that you maybe didn't see coming. That's very positive for a team. And then maybe something that you didn't see coming that alarms you. And I'll do the positive one first. So both of mine are going to be around Vandy. I saw Vandy several times this week. So, like one thing I loved about Vandy is the strength of their pitching staffs at the front and the back. Like Miller Green and JD Thompson are the two best pitchers as far as getting outs for me. And one goes on Friday night and one finishes games. I love that. RJ Austin, I think, is a star who's ready to take another leap. Like, hey, first pitch of the game against Grand Canyon, 5,000 people ready to go nuts. It's electric. He takes the first pitch of the game and hits what felt like a 200-mile-an-hour line drive down the left field line to just tell everyone, shh, be quiet. Everyone be quiet. And, of course, Vandy wins that game. And then and the second game against Nebraska at Salt River, which is a big league park, RJ Austin, in his first at-bat, hits a home run to center field in a major league spring training facility. RJ Austin, who's not hit many home runs in his college career. So, but the biggest positive impact for Vandy, Cody Bowker was phenomenal against Irvine. And I was really curious. His numbers from Georgetown are interesting because they're very good, but the walks are a little high. And I know why they are now. It's, again, I'm going to say this out loud a couple times. I'm not comparing Cody Bowker to Pedro Martinez. I am not comparing Pedro Martinez and Cody Bowker. What I want you to picture, though, with Pedro Martinez is that low arm slot, that low long arm slot and the ball just riding up and in on right-handers. That's Cody Bowker's arm action. It's that low release, low slot, very long and loose, and the ball just explodes up and away to lefties and up and in on righties. And it's 90 to 93, but it plays way above the number. I think if he's their Sunday starter, he's going to be I think he's going to be a really good piece. I thought I was very skeptical of Bowker, and he was very impressive. Now, I can see why he walks people because the ball's hot and it's jumping around. It's hard to command. But, man, Irvine is very good. And, for the most part, I thought he handled them. So, anyway, there's a lot of places I go with Vandy. Kendall, you go next. What's a positive development that maybe caught you by surprise?
Yeah, I was at a tournament, so there's like several of them, but I'm not going to break your rule. I will go with Luke Hill looking like an elite player. Runes, you and I have talked about him plenty of times because he's obviously started at Arizona State, had a really solid first year, 314, 642 last year at Ole Miss, 291, 327. Like not bad, but but not amazing, right? So kind of coming into this season, one of the keys for Ole Miss was for Luke Hill and some other guys, Jet Odemark is another one, that, you kind of expect them to take a step forward. If they didn't take a step forward, Ole Miss is going to have a hard time, racking up, more win totals. But, I thought over the weekend, Luke Hill impressed me in the sense that he was kind of the heartbeat of that team, which is really interesting. I didn't know he had that kind of personality, but he was like their energy guy. Like he was their hype director over the weekend. And he backed that up with 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, a triple, and hit 556 over the weekend. So a guy that hit 3 home runs, he has 2 already after one weekend. So I thought Luke Hill, just to me, looking like an All-American kind of player. I was not expecting that opening weekend.
Love it. Bradley, what say you? What's a pleasant surprise for you?
Yeah, so I bounced around a lot watching a lot of the ACC games, and I think one team in particular, Georgia Tech, their bullpen. It was a group coming into the year. If you look at them on paper, they brought in a lot of transfers that the numbers last year, it's ERAs in the 7 or the 8, or they haven't pitched in a year and a half, like all kinds of question marks. And, up against Old Dominion, who played really well and was honestly unlucky to not get a win the whole weekend. Up against that, it seemed like Georgia Tech had so many different options out of the bullpen. And the numbers, 18 innings, they only gave up 4 runs, I think like 30-something strikeouts. And they had guys like Jalen Payton, Caden Spivey, Caden Gaudet, just a lot of different options. And I think if Georgia Tech's pitching is like that and they get a lot of consistency out of the bullpen, that's a team we're going to be talking about in a few weeks or months here.
Did I see that Drew Burris it was not just a grand slam, but a walk-off grand slam?
It was. It was pretty funny. It was 3-0 Old Dominion going into the 9th. Georgia Tech ties it at 3, bases loaded, Burris is up. You have to pitch to him. You can't walk him with the bases loaded. And yeah, walk-off grand slam in the second game there.
Well, love it. All right, boys. So let's go the reverse. We'll be a little negative Nancy now. Something that you saw this weekend that concerned you. I'm sticking with Vandy. I saw a ton of Vandy this weekend. My biggest concern walking away from Vandy, I saw him play 3 times. Ethan McIlvain's not a starter yet. Remember, like, he's a big name and he's famous and he's very talented, but he hasn't pitched that much. And Nebraska, he only got 8 outs. He gave up 6 hits. He walked 3. Now, of the 8 outs he got, he did strike out 7 of those hitters. But, like, that's what a reliever does, right? And you can't start Saturday in the SEC and get 8 outs. Now, again, like, I got to calm down, right? I saw Kendall, you might have been there with me. Kumar Rocker's freshman year, he didn't get out of the second inning against TCU, and next thing you know, he's throwing a no-hitter.
TCU or Cal Poly?
I think it was TCU. They did play, but long story short, like, next thing you know, he's throwing a no-hitter, 19 strikeout at the end of his freshman year to go to Omaha, basically. But, Ethan McIlvain, he sprays his fastball. He doesn't command his stuff great. He just looks like a guy with a great arm who needs reps. Yeah. And, like, getting your reps on Saturdays in the SEC feels like not like, I mean, we should sell roller coaster ride tickets to that. But again, like, he's very talented. He's a competitive kid. You always will bet on those 2 things. But man, and I think Nebraska deserves some credit. They were very ready to play. And, in fairness to Vandy, Vandy played potentially 3 league champions this week. They played Grand Canyon on the road, who we think is going to win the WAC. They played Nebraska, who could very easily win the Big Ten. And then they played Irvine, who could win the Big West. So, credit to Vandy for really testing themselves. But I thought I was more certain of Ethan McIlvain. I leave this weekend feeling like he's a positive piece for them. I don't know if Saturday starter's the role. Kendall, what say you? What's a concern that you didn't see coming?
Yeah, I mean, for me, given the weekend that was very offensive in a lot of ways, I would say Oklahoma State's pitching staff. I came away very concerned about their pitching. I thought against the better offensive lineups they faced, they had a really difficult time getting outs in big situations. And the issue I kind of ran into with that team is, Harrison, Bodendorf, the Hawaii transfer, for instance, was up to 91, 92 with this fastball early. Really good changeup. I think you pointed that out. It is a really good changeup. But again, you see that once and all of a sudden it becomes very hittable. Gabe Davis, who was expected to be their closer, starts. And again, electric stuff. But, is he a starter? Is he not a starter? That's going to be a really big question mark kind of moving forward, or kind of a question moving forward. And then, Ethan Lund, came out of the bullpen. I think he threw 1 2/3, gave up a run. So he, again, wasn't incredibly sharp. And so I just thought that Oklahoma State, yesterday's game against Texas was a hot mess on the mound. So I just thought Oklahoma State as a whole just looked very iffy pitching-wise. I will say this. I don't want to be a negative Nancy this whole time about OSU. I do like Stormy Rhodes, a freshman for them, the Texas native. He looked really good out of the bullpen. It was a hard-nosed approach. He had pretty firm stuff, really good slider. So keep an eye on Stormy Rhodes. I think if a couple of these other guys continue to struggle, I would look for him to get a much more significant role moving forward. But right now, they're going to hit, man. Like, I love that offense. Colin Bergman was really good over the weekend. Ian Doherty was good as well. But again, pitching is a concern with OSU. And I don't think any of us are really that surprised by that. I mean, I pinpoint that as a concern, but, like, are we really shocked that Oklahoma State's pitching is a concern right now? Probably not.
Yeah, they're very similar to Arizona, right? You got to replace your whole rotation. That's scary, and that's not like a day one proposition. But the good news for both teams, as you've pointed out, Kendall, is they don't need an elite pitching staff. They just need a pitching staff that can support an elite offense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bradley, what about you? What's a concern that you leave with that maybe you didn't have going in?
Yeah, and I don't know if I didn't have it going in, kind of cheating the category, but I think it's Clemson's third starter, their Sunday starter. I think figuring out who that is, because you obviously have a lot of faith in Aiden Knock, and Ethan Darden looked excellent. And they ran Justin Lagurnick out there, obviously trying to figure out, Dane Moeller, Ethan Gillen potentially. But Lagurnick got just shelled by Ole Miss. And I think Clemson had a good weekend, 2 ranked wins, but that was definitely kind of a letdown to end the weekend. And I think figuring out who that, third guy they have is going to be something they're going to have to identify.
Bradley, I thought you were going to say that your concern that you didn't see coming was that Clemson only wins when Eric Bakich is in the radio booth and not when he's on the field. But that's not a concern you have long term?
Maybe Nick Schnabel needs to be the head coach.
It's really funny you say that. I did have that thought because it was like, I think it was like the inning after, they're down 7-0. They cut to Eric and they're talking to him and they're interviewing him and asking like, oh, it's like back to what's it like to be back in the dugout and everything. And I was just like, man, tough first on-field start.
Yeah, I'll add something real quick on LaGuardia just because I was there for that start. The thing that's really interesting to me is he kind of reminds me of Bodendorf for OSU a little bit, to where there was very little margin for error with his stuff. I mean, again, it's a fastball up to 91, 92. I think he might have bumped a 3 a couple times, but when he wasn't landing the breaking ball for strikes, I mean, they were just hammering that fastball. So the big thing for him is if he's got to be throwing that breaking ball in the zone. If not, it's over for him.
Yep, well said. Hey, boys, I want to have each of us just overview kind of what we were locked in on or where we were in your and I's case, Kendall, and then we'll wrap. But I want to say also thank you to our other sponsor, Tecovas Boots. If you love the game of college baseball, you know that smell, the one that brings you right back, fresh cut grass, a broken-in glove made with real leather. That's exactly what you get with Tecovas Boots. They're made for baseball people, whether you've been wearing boots your whole life or you're picking up your first pair. With over 200 steps of craftsmanship, they're built to last. They feel great right out of the box, and they look even better. Anywhere worth going is worth going in good boots. Find your pair today at Tecovas. That is a cool sponsor.
It is an awesome sponsor. Can I make a request? I have looked into Tecovas providing cowboy hats for Fitzy and Bradley over here, our resident Northeastern New Englanders.
Oh gosh, please!
Bradley, I think you look good with a cowboy hat, man.
Oh, with that mustache,
I think it
really would.
I think it would work.
Oh, Bradley, you rolling into the Omaha press box with that mustache and a Tecovas cowboy hat?
I think we should. I think the whole staff in Omaha this year should just roll in with like boots, cowboy hat, starched up like pearl snap.
Oh man, D1Baseball logoed bandanas. Let's go. Oh, like a college baseball media gang. So great. Boys, so I was in Arizona, and obviously the first weekend here is amazing. You've got the Sanderson Ford Classic out in Surprise, which is basically Oregon State. You have Arizona State was hosting Ohio State. You have the Desert Invitational run by Chuck Fox at MLB. Major League Baseball, which at the spring training sites. Let me go one at a time. And again, I'm going to go turbo mode. ASU went 4-0 this weekend, which is really important for Willie Bloomquist. This is a big year for that program, trying to kind of find another gear. They had a great 3-game series versus Ohio State. I leave there very encouraged for both. I thought Ohio State really pressured Arizona State. And it makes me feel very convicted that Justin Hare is the perfect coach for Ohio State. I feel they got swept, and I feel way more convicted that he's going to do a great job at Ohio State. But for ASU, and then ASU beat Austin Peay today on Monday. This is a huge weekend for Arizona State. They were really offensive. I am concerned about Arizona State's bullpen, but their offense is legit. We mentioned Vandy and Grand Canyon, Nebraska, and UCI. Vanderbilt played without Brody Johnston. Irvine played without Anthony Martinez. Irvine was very impressive. I think Irvine's going to give Santa Barbara everything they want and more for the Big West. I mean, they were considering they didn't have their best hitter. Boy, Colin Yeaman is a name to remember. Didn't play this fall. Junior college transfer. He played short. It was a laser show all weekend. Colin Yeaman is the new shortstop for Irvine. He was very good. Nebraska was just awesome to watch. They're exactly who you think they are under Will Bolt, Rob Childress, that great coaching staff. Mike Sirianni, like they're tough, they're physical. They didn't play great, but what do you expect from a Big Ten team coming right out of the gym? But Nebraska's going to be fine. Huge win over Vandy. Grand Canyon was great. Zach York played really good against Vandy. He could be the WAC player of the year if it breaks that way. And then, Oregon State out in Surprise. Xavier was there. They're always game. UNLV was frisky too. Indiana went 0-4, and that's concerning. It's so weird. You watch Indiana play and you like their team. Their position player group is athletic and good. They're skilled, but they didn't play very good this week. And that 0-4 that's not going to wear well. Like we're in an era where starting out 0-4, even on the road, is not amazing, especially given that those are neutral site games. Hey, Oregon State is who we think they are, guys. Like Dax Whitney was awesome. Like I think he'll end up being their Friday night guy. It is like up to 99, composed, like, big arm. And then at the top of their order, Trent Carraway and Iva Arquette, good luck with that. Like just gnarly. Like they're just aggressive and physical. And Jacob Craig, I'm going to write about him. I don't want to give away my story, but Jacob Craig is a very physical guy in the middle of their order. They're going to need that because my one question mark for Oregon State, they're a little bit top heavy. It's a little bit starish, and then there's a pretty significant drop off. I wonder what that's going to look like. So, and again, it was an awesome weekend out here and a lot to process. Kendall, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll kind of start with Texas at Shriners. I mean, Texas technically won the tournament. I think the big thing with Texas is, Jared Spencer. One of the questions we had coming into the season was, can he be extended? He went 5+ innings and was honestly very sharp. I mean, he was up to 96, 97 early with the fastball, had a really good breaking ball, was really just zoned in. Like it was not one of those guys where if he threw a couple of balls, he looked a little rattled. It was laser focus and, really impressed with him. Luke Harrison. I mean, who would have thought that Luke Harrison would go out there and did what he did on Saturday? A guy that, last year, had a really high ERA, terrible strikeout to walk ratio. Did not have a big role after having that injury 2 years ago. He looked really good. And I think the biggest thing with Texas is that, they still have question marks in the bullpen. The one concern I think that Jim Schlesinger is going to have is that Ruger Riojas, right now is a bullpen weapon, but really outside of Ruger, I mean, Will Mercer, really nice left-handed arm, but still not quite there. Dealt with a lot of injury issues. They don't really have another guy in the back in that bullpen that you're like, hey, this is a bona fide dude that's going to come in here and shut you down. So how they manage Riojas' workload moving forward, I think they have to keep him in the bullpen. So that really puts a lot of pressure on guys like Cade Being, who lasted less than 2 innings, on Sunday against Oklahoma State. It really puts a lot of pressure on guys like that to produce. But the one thing Texas is going to do, they're really going to hit. I mean, Max Blue was really good. Will Gasparino hit an opposite field home run. I think he hit another home run last night against Oklahoma State. Really impressed with him. And then the other guy, Adrian Rodriguez, the freshman third baseman, had a few punch outs, but also had a couple of very, very big hits. Again, a mature offensive approach for his age. There's a little bit of swing and miss there, but a lot of upside. This is a guy that probably is going to have a solid freshman year, but like next year and the year after is going to be an absolute terror at the plate. So I feel really good about their offense. Clemson, felt great about their offense. Jaron Purify, probably the highlight of the weekend was watching Jaron Purify for Clemson run the bases. Seif and I were just sitting there like laughing at how fast he was, because it's not like he's a little dude. Like he's built like a brick house and he just flies around the bases. So like he was exciting to watch yesterday when he had a double. And obviously Cam Canarello was phenomenal. Clemson's going to be fine. They went 2-1 a weekend, had one stinker on the mound. They'll be just fine. Then Louisville and Ole Miss guys are really similar to me. I'm not sure how much I kind of trust Louisville on the mound outside of Patrick Forbes and Parker Detmers. But, Forbes against Texas, it was up to 98 consistently early, had a really good breaking ball, was able to kind of move that fastball around the zone. It was never in the same spot on the next fastball. He was ultra impressive. That's a game changer for them. And then Parker Detmers, you look at his stat line and go, oh, he struggled a little bit, but he really didn't. He had, a couple of bad pitches here and there. But again, really sharp stuff, velo, good breaking ball. If those two guys, pitch or show the stuff that they did over the weekend, the duration of the season, Louisville will take a step forward, because offensively, Eddie King Jr. didn't really kind of get going till yesterday's game, but Alex Alicea He's a really nice player. I like their grit. This is a team that was very, very boisterous in the dugout, played really hard-nosed. Even when they were down, they were still playing like it was a one-run game in the ninth inning. And I think when a team does that, even when they're down, big late in the game, I think that kind of tells me a little bit something about them. So I like their vibe. I hate to be a guy that's just like, hey, I like their vibe, but I do like their vibe. That looks like a team that is really close, and they'll make a move this year.
I'm with you, Kendall. It did again, we never root for teams, but programs like Louisville, Ole Miss, and UCLA had an awesome weekend, swept Cal Poly. Programs like that have a lot of cachet and marquee, when they struggle and then they have they show a sign of life, like those three programs did this weekend, where they show like they might be ready for a bounce back. I do really appreciate that, because it's not easy. And when you have those types of expectations in a program like that, it was cool to see all three of them show pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I'll add on the Cards is, and Bradley can probably touch on this a little bit more, but the only thing that kind of concerns me a little bit is, Eddie King got going on Sunday, but that's just an offense that I just really wonder how they will end up stacking, how they'll stack up against the top 2 or 3 teams in the ACC. It was a solid lineup, but it wasn't like there was anybody in that lineup that you were going through and you were like, oh God, like this guy's coming up. They just did not have that guy over the weekend. Tay Davis was a talented freshman that we talked so much about in the fall. I want to say he went 0 for 7 on the weekend. It's kind of interesting. Dan McDonald told me after the Saturday game that he was like, this sounds really weird, but he goes, I kind of like it because he was so good in the fall that I don't want him to get a false self-confidence of thinking like, hey, I'm way better than all these guys, when in reality, this is a different ball game. So I'll be interested to see Tay Davis's, how he improves over the next couple of weeks, because he definitely looked the part. There was just a lot of swing and miss over the weekend.
Yep. Well, he's from Malvern Prep, Kendall, so the toughness and charisma.
Is he really? I did not know that.
Ben Davis's
so no
son.
wonder you were so offended that I said Western PA.
I'm prepared to get my feelings hurt on Tay Davis because I'm so invested. But yes, he's
Sypha and I real quick. Yeah, Sypha and I on Tay Davis, by the way. For anybody listening or watching this, go look at his profile picture on the website. We said that he looks like a 38-year-old coal miner. He does. He looks like he's 37 years old. So I kind of love it.
Yeah, I'm pulling. I pull for all the Malvern kids, but he's a power hitter, so he's going to strike out. And by the way, when you're a left-handed hitter in your first 4 at bats, or however many of your college career against Jared Spencer of Texas, good luck with that.
That's no fun. Well, next time. I don't know when I'll cover Louisville again this year, but next time I'll ask him if he's heard about Mike Rooney's legacy at Malvern Prep.
There's no chance that he has. There's no chance. Hey, so Bradley, I want you to go wherever you want, but I do want you to comment on North Carolina, Florida State, and Virginia, because I feel like those 3 ACC teams had significant weekends.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think North Carolina, I wrote about their pitching staff up on D1. And I think they've got a lot there. And it just seems like, they ran out the Jason DeCaro, Aiden Howe. They ran out those guys. Then they had the guys back from injury, Jake Knapp, Fulger Boaz. Then they brought out some freshmen that just more than looked the part. I mean, Ryan Lynch is 4 innings, 7 strikeouts, I think 1 hit, 2 hits against Texas Tech. He's legit, looks the part of a weekend starter. They just have a lot of options to go to. And I think the offense is more of a question. They didn't hit a home run in 3 games. Granted, it's early in the season. But I think with that pitching staff, it's going to be really hard for teams to score and, keep up with them. Florida State, I mean, James Madison, I don't think he had much of a chance against that pitching staff. I mean, on Friday, you face Jamie Arnold, and he needs 70-something pitches to go 6 shutout. And then they turn it to John Abraham, and he strikes out 8 of the 9 guys he faces. So that lefty rotation all looked really good, and they didn't really have to score much, but they did. So I was definitely impressed with the Florida State staff. Excited to see him up against some more significant lineups. And then Virginia, yeah, that was kind of the story, that extra inning loss to Michigan to start the year. Jay Woolfolk didn't have his best stuff, kind of got in a battle. I think Michigan was really impressive this weekend. So that win's kind of more about, I'd say, about Michigan than Virginia. But I think Virginia did a good job bouncing back, and I don't think there's too much to worry about with them. I mean, Bryson Moore and Tomas Valinkis looked incredible in the next two games. Granted, Villanova and Rice, but still really efficient. And you started to see signs of the heavy hitters in that lineup starting to get going. And I think they're going to hit. And I think, it started to show through. And once they get Evan Blanco back, we'll see what they do with their weekend rotation. But they're definitely going to be all right. I don't think anyone a lot of people overreact to the number 2 team losing, but I think they'll be just fine.
Game, so clearly they shouldn't be in the top 5,
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be, it's interesting. The top of the ACC and the top of the SEC, there's just some really good teams that are just so much the tip of the spear in college baseball, where when they're playing opponents that don't have the same resources, they kind of maul them. Like I'm thinking about Tennessee, just, Hofstra is a program that was in a regional a couple years ago, right? Like, but they're in this setting, opening weekend, Tennessee just manhandled Hofstra, and that's kind of what you would expect to happen. I will tell you on my drive home, I listened to the Highway to Hoover podcast where Joe and Marcus if you want a little bit more on the SEC teams that did just kind of destroy their opponents, you can get that from Joe and Marcus. We're going to stick to the ones that were more, like apples to apples types of things. I do want to give a couple shout outs. Hey, Holy Cross out of the A10 goes down to Auburn and steals a game, right? Which, like that, Auburn is still kind of rebuilding a little bit, but good. I think Peter Flaherty put on Twitter, go Satyrs, right? For Crusaders, like, well done, PD3 Sticks. And then, hey, St. Bonaventure, hey, they go down to Gardner-Webb. They win 3 out of 4. Jason Rathburn, he won a junior college national title, and I picked them 11th or 12th. The coaches picked them 11th or 12th in the A10, and that's going to be very, very interesting. But as we wrap, boys, I want to say this. Don't be at games in the beginning of the season without your subscription to D1 Baseball. Kendall's giving away the farm right now. Preview 25 at checkout. Get you 25% off. Remember, all the good stuff that Bradley's doing at ACC Extra, if you sign up for that, you get SEC Extra for free. Same thing. If you want Joe and Mark's stuff at SEC Extra, you get Bradley's stuff at ACC Extra for free. So it's a package deal.
Great deal.
Yeah,
Riz, can I give a mid-major shout out?
Oh, please.
Can I add to this?
Yeah.
How about San Jose State? Brad,
Yes.
San Filippo's Spartans go down to Louisiana and take 2 or 3 from the Raging Cajuns, a projected regional team. They allowed 9 runs in 3 games down in Lafayette. That was a really impressive statement by the Spartans, who, by the way, they made huge improvements last year as well. So keep an eye on those guys.
Flip has done such a good, as you said, Brad Sanfilippo, he's done such a good job at San Jose State.
Yeah.
Where, like,
really
you talk about maximizing your resources. Like, just they were really struggling when he got there, and man, has he done an awesome job. So I'll give you guys an example. Like, you're at these games and you're trying to process all these, Sorry, I muted myself. Oh my God. Mike. Oh,
hey, we have an excuse. A long weekend. We have an excuse.
That's right. How are you going to use our website in the beginning of the season? RJ Austin was the guy for me, because I feel like people have dinged him for lack of power, and then I'm sitting there watching him hit a home run to center field at a spring training site, and so I looked it up. His year last year was absolutely fascinating. RJ Austin last year, 276 plate appearances, 4 home runs. That's it, 4 home runs, but 54 RBIs and 27 stolen bases. So just little things like that when you're trying to get your arms wrapped around players. You want access to the website and all those different types of stats, and that's not even the advanced type of stats that you got there. So,
Runes, one other thing I was going to ask you is GCU beat Nebraska today to go 2-2. Anybody in particular for GCU that really stood out to you?
So a new name like Zach York feels like he's going to have a huge year. He had a massive home run against
Big bar
Troy.
fight meter on him.
Yes, 290 pounds. He's an absolute bull. Obviously, his brother Nick is in the big leagues with the Pirates. Joe, his brother, is the all-time hits leader at Cal Poly. I think Zach's going to have a big year. They have a second baseman, Troy Sanders, who's a breakout star. He was very, very good. Connor Madison of the fabulous Roon Dogs carved Vandy up. Vandy had built a lead against Isaac Lyon, but Connor Madison was great.
How proud were you? Was it like your child going out there and dominating Vandy?
Well, I don't know whether I don't know if I'm allowed to coach the fabulous Roon Dogs because I love Connor Madison, but he spent a lot of time with his face in the Vandy dugout. Like he really believes in letting them know about it, and that's not really kind of the Roon Dogs way, Kendall. But maybe I have to adjust.
The GCU coaches are wondering why you're up there screaming at him the whole game.
I should text Craig Wallace. Hey, I'd like to talk to Connor this week. Do it. No, I'm just kidding.
Between innings, tell him to come over here.
Yes. The answer to your question, I was very, very proud because he was awesome. He dominated Vandy and gave Grand Canyon a chance to sneak in there and almost win that game. So, gentlemen, well done. What a weekend. We're all gassed. We all need to get in the cold plunge right now. But we wouldn't want it any other way. What an awesome way to kick off the season. Everyone, get on the website. There's so many great articles on there. We will be back Thursday night with our weekend preview. And that is it. Everyone have a great week. We'll catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.